What's up, everybody? Hope you all are doing well today. Want to go over real quick your press release and presentation Apologia assignment that is listed. And let me go over here on your As You Learn. You can see the instructions will be right here, as well as a lecture and a PowerPoint and your Journal 3. Now, I will also mention if you scroll down here, you'll see also an AP style guide. I will go over why I mentioned that right now here in a minute. So I'm going to try to keep this brief. Again, if you have any questions about Apologia, please consult the PowerPoint and the lecture first, and we'll go from there. So with this assignment, like I said, you can find this on As You Learn, but I got a basic rundown of what we're dealing with here. Now, this is a two-part assignment. So on the 28th, which I believe is a Thursday, on the 28th, you will have two things that you will be turning in. One will be a recorded presentation, and the other will be a press release. It is going to be the same client, and it's also going to be a similar strategy. Now, your press release will likely differ from the actual speech itself. So you will have different word choice in your presentation that you would in your press release. They may not differ that much, but I encourage you, don't read your press release as part of your speech because part of this is going to have to sound like it's coming from you. So have some difference there. So anyway, with the requirements of this, please choose an organization that hasn't encountered a crisis or an issue or a risk or something and is currently going on this. I prefer something national, and the only reason I say that is because you will probably find resources, what they did. So being able to find that is a big deal in this case. So with that, this is where you consult Apologia or category-based Apologia that you will want to list at least one of these strategies. Now, if you sit there and say, this is how this organization dealt with the crisis, they were in denial, but I want to take a mortification where I apologize for the wrongdoings and suggest specific corrective action. You can use more than one. In fact, it's at least one. I have had other students in the past that have kind of picked apart certain things of the issue or the crisis and said, some of them I evade responsibility on this particular thing, but then I apologize on this particular thing. So they segment it. Or, somebody who said, I did not do this. However, there are some things that I need to apologize for. I will say anytime you do mortification, you should consider corrective action as well to say, like, what is your repentance of what you plan to do? So, like I said, focus on the video and what these 5 areas of apologia mean. Category is there too. If there's something where you feel like you were unjustly accused of something and you need to kind of have a speech back towards that, that is one thing you can do. And please feel free to ask me before submitting this. So if you're confused and you're like, Dr. Daniel, I really don't know what I want to choose on this, what I would recommend is not only finding a organization that has dealt with a crisis, but maybe a crisis that hasn't been addressed very well. So something that you would read and say, man, if I were doing that, I would handle it this way, and then provide a speech and a press release to do so. Other things we can look at is within the speech and the press release, addressing irrelevant audiences, and do you need to address multiple audiences? So if you're saying you're sorry, do you not only need to say sorry to stakeholders, the public, if it's a safety regulation, do you need to apologize to parents and children? Think about who needs to be addressed in this. This will ultimately be in your speech as well as your press release. You need to follow AP guidelines as best you can. There are things called slugs and boilerplates. Slugs is just a basic inline, and a boilerplate is a mission statement at the end. And I would say be careful with your mission statement if it's something that, you're praising yourself with it. And also keep it short. So when it comes to the boilerplate, I have an example up on As You Learn at the bottom there that could kind of show you what that looks like. Length will vary, but at the same 5 to 7 paragraphs, it probably should only be about a page. And paragraphs are 3 sentences or more. Don't hang on the issue, though. Address it the way it needs to be addressed and explain what you need to explain, but don't labor on the point. So making sure it's not only factual, not only, I mean, if it needs to be remorseful, but again, the more you bloviate on something, the worse it could be. So just keep it brief. And then what I call considered writing for the times. What I will mention is you can do a past event as well. So I used a very popular for a long time, the Exxon oil spill. And if you're going to write about it, you can't write for 2022. You need to write for 1989. So in other words, how would you address it as it was happening in this case? So if you're going to pick something that was several years ago to decades ago, what have you, I don't mind that. Just make sure that you write while it's happening, or at least tell me what stage it's going to be in. Because, and honestly, I mean, as a crisis breaks versus a month from the crisis breaking, it's going to be 2 different assignments entirely. So it could go from, 4 hours after it happened, like, we don't know the information and we'll get it back to you as best we can, versus we know exactly what happened and here's the information that we know and what we're doing to correct it. So in this case, I'd probably say don't do something that is completely breaking. Do something that you have a little bit of time to research what has been done. So the grading criteria here, basically, can I publish it? My contention when it comes to anything regarding journalistic writing and PR writing is, can I send this out right away? And if I can't, that's where, B's, C's, D's will usually rear its ugly head. Although B and C's are going to be considered very acceptable work, but it would be something where I would say this needs a rewrite. So only when we look at A's that I'm like, I wouldn't have but very little edits to do here. So please keep that in mind kind of as your rubric here. All right. And then lastly, recording a statement presenting your information with the chosen apologia. So please record yourself. So if you could do it on a Zoom call, that's what I'm doing right now in terms of what I record on. Speech should be along the lines of the press release, but not verbatim. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to your presentation and look at your press release. And if it's the same thing, I'm counting off. It should not be the same thing. When you think about this, like I said, make it so that it is conversational to an extent. Speech should be 3 to 5 minutes long. Don't labor on the points. Again, keep it short, keep it sweet. Consider audiences. This is where I was talking once upon a time about the Ronald Reagan speech, of how addressing multiple publics and stakeholders in this case. Deliver manuscript would probably be ideal. And the main reason I say that is because you want to make sure that you have good word choice throughout the whole thing. But if you practice, memorize would be fine. I would stick to manuscript, but at the same time, when you're writing your script, make sure to include for things like pauses, notes that you should have certain inflection on. So if there's a word that requires certain emphasis, then make sure that that's doable, and make sure that you have something in mind that will be delivered effectively. So if you're apologizing, think about how that sounds for a public. You want it to sound sincere. So if I'm hearing something where, a student in this class is going to give a very monotone delivery, think of it in terms of you listening to yourself and say, does that sound sincere, or does it sound like I'm just going through the motions? You want it to sound sincere. And one of the ways you do that is making a script that looks like you would actually speak it rather than how you would normally write it. So, and this is another reason why your press release and your speech are going to be 2 different things. And the last thing I'll mention here, well, look at the camera. Yeah, make sure, because that actually is good PSR, parasocial relationships research. We have better parasocial interactions and relationships with people if they are looking into the camera versus on their computer screen. So that's another way to make sure like typeface is big, very easy to read. And lastly, more importantly, you are prohibited to use any statements already made by the company. So if you use similar strategies and you're like, well, they did a good job on that, that's fine. Still, how would you do it differently? Otherwise, yeah, don't do anything verbatim, or yeah, you will receive a 0, and that will be reported to the Office of Academic Integrity. So I take that very seriously. So make sure it is your own, please. And I'm sure everything will be fine. So I love this assignment. I've been doing this for years. And I think it's good practice for not only being able to write press releases in a time of crises, but also being able to give a presentation. Oh, last thing I will say, not only the due date, which again is July 28th, but if you would like to do the same client, you can, that you're choosing for your final project, and I plan on addressing that either Monday or Tuesday of this week. You can do that, but what I will really strongly recommend is doing something different. And the reason I say do something different is because I want you to get practice with different crises, and I want you to get practice with different organizations and their needs and wants, because you know, crisis does not exist in a vacuum. There's going to be a lot of complications that you won't be used to, and getting all the details and all the practice you can is always going to be the best solution. So that is it for today. For that, I'm going to be posting some more recordings here soon, and I'll post the Lanny Davis chapters up here as well, because that will be part of your journal entry. So hope you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.